Welcome to The Other Side of the Bridge with Iron City Paranormal, where they discuss real investigations, first-hand experiences, unexplained moments, and everything that happens when you step off the regular path and onto the other side of the bridge. Just honest paranormal talk, Iron City Paranormal style. And now, here are your hosts, Derek Smith and Dan Metelsky.
Derek, you look very different again this week. Everybody, welcome back to episode 14 of The Other Side of the Bridge with Iron City Paranormal. We are your hosts, Dan and Aaron. Derek, once again, is out of commission. This will be week number 2 without Derek.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron is filling in the best she can for a middle-aged balding man. So
I'll do what I can.
For all intents and purposes, you're doing a phenomenal job, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to be back with you. So tonight on The Other Side of the Bridge, we are getting into something that remarkably comes up more often than it should. Right? Or I don't want to say more often than it should, but more often than I would have ever thought that it would once we got into this kind of stuff. But tonight we're going to be talking about something that crosses over a little bit between experience and belief, because I don't think you can have one without the other for this scenario. But that topic is spiritual cleansing. It is something that, Aaron, you're very familiar with, and after you got on board with us within the last couple of years, we started to do spiritual cleansings of, for lack of a better term, negative energies. Not necessarily evil. When we say negative, we're not always talking evil, but just really energies that homeowners didn't want around, as much as we've also cleansed ourselves after investigation. So it's just something that we have kind of developed and honed by requirement, not necessarily by desire.
Yep.
Right. And when we talk about spiritual cleansings, we're talking about, how do we, as the land of the living, so to speak, how do we draw those boundaries when just saying "leave me alone" doesn't work anymore, right? And we have a lot of times where when we're dealing with intelligent spirits, we're able to put those boundaries up verbally and just say, "Hey, leave me alone," more or less. But other times, the stuff's not listening. And Aaron, you're the one that's really opened my mind to this more so, especially when we talk about like cord cutting and separating yourself from things. That's something I want you to get way more into as the show goes on, because that's something that you've brought to my mind, pretty regularly when we're talking about cleansings.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that it is incorporated into so many of the conversations we have about these things, conversations with homeowners, conversations with people on site. It's just an aspect of the engaging with paranormal that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. There's always this fear for a lot of people that something's going to attach to them, right? We hear that all the time. Something's going to attach to me and it's going to come home. Well, here's a way for us to proactively make sure that those things aren't happening. And it's not necessarily also things only attaching. Whenever we're talking about the cords that we're creating between ourselves and other people, other entities, other memories, experiences, we are actively creating those cords, even whenever we are in our investigations, even whenever we are connecting with an entity. I've had that experience before where we've had to, as we're leaving, yes, we may cleanse, but maybe we're connecting to something there and you can feel those cords still attached after, and to being able to cut those cords to that entity to separate yourself. It's such an important aspect that a lot of people are sleeping on,
Yeah, it's it makes me laugh whenever you say chords because we text each other constantly.
Yes.
Throughout the day, throughout the week, not only on show contents and like investigations and things. We'll just be talking about just random things that happen in our lives. And it's incredible the concept of chords. Like
Yes.
how many times have you texted me over even the last month and just said the chords?
Yep.
Right? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit because
Because I love that.
it's a it's a term or an idea that like not everyone is really familiar with. So there is this theory, there is this idea, and again, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm just going to explain it as I understand it and how I work
Mhm,
within that world.
mhm.
There is this idea that you as an energy connect with anyone, anything around you via energy, and you are connected to things, people, um, spaces, memories, experiences. You're connected through energy to these people. A good idea or a good example of this, to your point, Dan, is like how many times are you thinking like, oh my goodness, I just somebody pops into your head and you think, oh my goodness, yeah, I need to call my mom. Like, oh my goodness. And then your mom calls you, right? Though that is an
Mhm.
exact example of like these really strong chords that you have with someone that you're really connected to. Chances are very likely as you're thinking of that person and that person is popping into your head on the other end of that cord, you are also popping into that person's head. And there's a reason that connection is being made. Now, it's not necessarily between just people, right? Like you can
Mhm.
have chords to places, to memories, to spots in time. Like you can be connected to experiences, to trauma, all of these different things that are going to connect you through time and space between people, right?
Mhm.
Now, when we talk about cord cutting, that is the ritual of taking those cords, cutting the cord between you and that person, memory, experience, sorry, and releasing it back to that
The
person.
chords. It's the chords that are making him go.
It's the chords, I'm telling you. And there have been such cool experiences with this, and once you start recognizing it in your own life and you start seeing those chords happen, they become so apparent. They're everywhere.
And it's funny to me because like I'm trying to learn up on like string theory and those kind of things,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of like on the same vein as these chords,
Yep.
right? But when I think about it, I wish I could have a time machine and I could go back to being a little kid. Like not that I was ever little, but like when I could be a younger child. Because like I wish I could go and actually create those what were those like little tin can phones that you'd make that
Yeah.
have the cords between them. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if those things actually I mean I guess in theory they actually work because there's
The
science
vibrations.
behind that, the
Yeah, there's the
vibrations on the
vibrations. Uh-huh.
cords, but that's very much like when you message me, or Derek messages me back
Mhm.
whenever I say, "I'm thinking about this," or whatever, and
Or we say
either of
the same
you
thing in our text messages at the same
Uh-huh,
time, like the same random thing. We're like, oh, those darn chords again. Yep.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
and every time you say that, I think of that, like, that tin can phone game,
Yeah.
right? Because it is, it's like we're on the other side of that receiving the message, but also
Mhm.
sending the same message back. It blows my mind sometimes and how often it happens.
Also, just as like a little caveat that is not related, but also might be, if you're
Mhm,
ever sitting there and you get that flash of somebody that you haven't talked to or heard from in a really long time, that's that cord igniting. Like if you ever think to yourself like, oh, I should probably reach out to that person. Reach out to that person. There's a reason that's igniting. There's a reason why that person popped into your head, and most likely you're going to reach out to that person. They're going to say, oh my goodness, I was just thinking about you yesterday. Let me tell you XYZ. If you ever have that in your in your life, you ever experience that, take that step, make that connection, because that's just the universe pulling you back into that person's orbit.
that's a good point. I'm not very social, so I don't reach out to people, but it's a good concept, and I never thought of doing that. Maybe I should try that.
You should. It's so interesting. I'm telling you, test the theory. Test the
I
theory
want to
next time it
actually.
happens. Just say, you know what? You just popped into my mind. I just wanted to reach out and say hey and see what happens. I'm telling you, it's awesome. It's so fun. It's so fun.
I do that with you guys. I do that with my wife. I do that with you guys, but I haven't tried it with just random people that pop into my head that I just never hadn't thought of for a long time. I should definitely try that out.
You should test the theory.
Yeah, no, I certainly will. So, to kind of bring us back on track with the episode a little bit. So, when we do cleansings, the main focus of these cleansings aren't to rid ourselves of these cords, right? That's not the cords connecting us to the people that we love, the people that we, interact with. Those aren't the cords we're talking about. These cords or these ties or whatever you want to call them, during an investigation or in your home, if you have, some things happening in your home, if there's a haunting in your home, if there's spiritual energies that are there that you don't really want there anymore, those are the kind of energies that we're talking about when we're doing cleansings, right? We're not trying to get rid of Derek from our heads. we're not trying, I mean, as much as I would love to be able to do that at times, that's not the goal, right? It's to get rid of these negative vibrations, so to speak, that are in our psyche and in our physical world that we live in, and trying to suppress them and get them to go away.
And I also want to caveat here, like I know we use the word negative a lot, and you already touched on this a little bit, but like when we're talking about negative versus positive, it very much is the span of emotions that are associated with that. It may not be, to your point earlier, it might not be something that's evil or mean. It could just be something that is anxious or fearful or sad. Like there's a lot more in that scope of negativity than just something that is mean or angry, right? Like it's all of that negativity, whether it is stress or anxiety. Whereas when we talk about positivity, there's, we talk about positive interactions and negative interactions. You have to think of that, like that whole span of positive energy that comes with positive emotions, and the whole span of negative energy that comes with negative emotions, whatever those negativities may be.
Sure. So when we get into this conversation on negative energies and what we're trying to break the bond with, it's actually, I say that it comes up more often than I ever thought it would. Like this is actually something that you and I had a conversation about 2 nights ago, right? There's a good friend of yours that potentially has some spiritual energy in her home, and we need to understand that, and the people listening need to understand that we can psychologically bring these energies into our own being, right? There isn't always, the stereotypical dead person on the other side of these things.
Yeah.
Right. Most of the time, these presences are concocted in our own psyche. They're things that, we put ourselves in this mental state. If there's, if we have stress in our lives, if we have things that are happening that are, just not normal, say we're home alone when we're not used to being home alone, there's the lights are out, power's out. And it's just kind of like we as predators in the top of the food chain, we don't like dark because we can't see. We're not made to work in the dark, right? We're made to work with light, with flashlights. That's why we sleep at night, right? The stuff that isn't killing other things, they're awake at night because they want to live in that space. But we ourselves, whenever we get into those periods of like uncomfortable darkness or quiet, or just, if there's stress in our lives, we can concoct these negative feelings and energies.
Or amplify them. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And amplify is a good word too, right? Because it can be something that's there already that we're kind of feeding with our emotions and with our feet, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about that. We're talking about the psychological situation, for lack of a better term, that we put ourselves in, which also plays into those environmental impacts, right? When we go into a creepy building, when we're expecting to turn the corner and see a headless guy standing there with his leg dragging, that then we're obviously like put at high alert.
Yep.
Right. And that's something that we've talked about a little bit, but like we're able to see a little bit better in the dark after our eyes adjust to it. But like what we can't see is while our hearing is amplified, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our smell is amplified. Our senses that we're able to use in the dark are amplified, which plays into the psyche of the whole thing. So there's environmental impacts. And I think that makes up about probably 3/4 of it, right?
Yeah.
Our psychological status and the world that we've created in our heads. Then there's the environmental, that's probably half of it, right? And then the a quarter of it, let's say, is the environment that we're in, the dark house, the smelly house, the musty basement, and then the last quarter leaves open for possible paranormal interaction.
Yeah. I would agree with
And I think it's a very, very small portion of it compared to the rest of it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But it could also be what starts it. It could also be the paranormal starts that vibe, those feelings, all those kind of things. So we have many different things that play into like when we do cleansings or we do cord cutting ceremonies or something, we're kind of getting rid of all of those
Mhm.
factors, and we want to be broad in the sense that we're addressing all of that at once, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we do that?
Mhm.
Right? And that's a loaded question
It is.
ultimately,
Yeah.
because there's no one right way to do anything when it comes to paranormal investigations, when it comes to paranormal interaction. We are not experts because no experts exist, right?
Yeah.
What we are is people that have experienced and have taken ourselves and put ourselves in those situations more often than your average person. So those people that don't do that for fun look at us and call us experts. Well, we're not experts, right? We don't, like, what is the definition of an expert for paranormal, right? We don't even know if what we're talking to is real. We think it is. In our mind, we believe it is.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to really say this is the way you do it, but what we can tell you is the way that we do it, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna kind of parse this up a little bit, and this is kind of, we're going completely off script, and I apologize for this, Aaron. But like, I want to set, like, how do we do these personal tie breakings with these
Mhm.
negative spirits, which, to be quite honest, is like your specialty. You're the one that kind of got me to really look into this kind of stuff. But then the other part of it is like the space, right? When we do home cleansings, when we make people feel safer in their homes, there are different approaches to these things, but they all kind of come from the same thing,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, um, this stuff's been around forever. It's been around for a long, long time. Well before Derek was losing hair and I was missing weight in Pee Wee football and everything else. People were doing this stuff well before us. So the act of cleansing of negative energy and spiritual attachments has actually been going back well into ancient civilizations.
Mhm.
And you could look up anything. If you could look it up from the religious aspect, there's religious practices.
Oh yeah.
There is cultural differences. If you look Native American culture, even like Indian culture, not Native American
Social.
Indian, but like the
Mhm.
country of India, they all kind of have their way of creating this safe space for themselves,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And a really common practice is through the use of smoke.
Yeah.
And those his like what we're most familiar with is sage.
Yeah. And
But that's,
smudging. Yep.
yeah, sage and smudging, but that's really not the only thing that you can use. It's kind of the old standby, so to speak, I think is what I'd
Most
call it.
well known, I feel like. Yeah.
Sure.
It's the most I don't want to say commercialized, but it's like it's so easy to go find a bundle of sage somewhere. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's the most widely understood.
Hmm. Yeah, you can go into metaphysical shops and buy smudging sticks,
You can go into a
right?
candle shop and find, you know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't even
absolutely.
need to be a metaphysical. People can find them all
Very
over the
true.
place.
Sure.
You go into a yoga studio and they've got, you know what I mean? Like, it's culturally widespread. I mean, you still have to go seek it out, but like, I don't know how often you can find it at like your local grocery store, but it's still easy to find. I would also I would put sound in that category as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
And while we use sound really regularly, one of my favorite tidbits whenever I think about this is the bell over the shop windows. Now I
Hmm.
don't know how much I know I've kind of mentioned this to you before, but for anybody who hasn't like put two and two together too, the little ding over the shop window whenever you would walk in and out, that was started, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, like in medieval times, where people would have these bells over shop windows. So whenever people walked in, any bad energy, like the plague, wouldn't walk through the door with them, right? Like it was cleansing energies, and it has just culturally continued, which
Yeah,
is so
and that
interesting.
and it's funny that you mentioned the plague because it's never something that I thought about until you just said it.
Mhm.
But I guess it could have been back whenever we as humans didn't understand how disease
Yeah,
worked. We
yeah,
thought there was a boogin following us through our
yeah.
door. It was a ghost that, you know, went into us
It
or
was, yeah, it
whatever,
was something evil
obviously.
that would come into that would just like show up into a village and take the entire village out, right? So like how do you protect yourself from that without any knowledge of modern, you know, modern
Mhm.
medical knowledge at all? It's, you know, if you can't see it, then the solution is obviously something that's also unseen. But yeah, that's how, I mean, people think that, oh, it's the bell on the door so that people know whenever you're walking in and out. No, it really started with trying to control the energy that was walking into a space and leaving bad energy out and allowing good energy to come in.
And that's something that we still use after we do cleansings. We've done several cleansings around the Pittsburgh area at this point for people in their homes,
Mhm.
you know, that have had uh I don't want to say run-ins with paranormal because it's not like they got, attacked in the alleyway by a ghost or something, but it's just people have asked us to come to their home and rid their home of this negative presence, this overwhelming sense of dread in their home, what have you, right? Um, so we'll do like the initial sage bomb, right? When we walk into the space, and we're going to get more into our practices after the commercial break, but we use those after we cleanse the space, we use those bells as you're referencing those bells on the door. They're actually called witch bells, like historically, and I think that goes to like even pagan times.
Yeah.
You know, they call them witch bells, and they are you can get them on Amazon for like $10. It's just like a cluster of bells hanging on kind of like trendy twine, right?
Yeah.
And you just hang it on your doorbell or on your, door handle of a door that you come into and leave the house from most often, and that sound, the audible release from the bells is believed to create like a force field, so to speak, to keep whatever could be bad outside of your home out
Mhm.
and away from your living space. So
Yeah.
again, we're going to go into our practices and how we do these things, but prior to getting into all of that fun stuff, I think it was important. We felt it was important to talk about like where did this come from, right?
Yeah.
It comes from religion. It comes from Native American, pagan. You pick a culture, and there is reference to using sage, using salt, using smoke, using sound to push out the stuff you don't want and
Mhm.
allow the stuff you do want in, right?
Yep.
So, coming up after the break, we're going to get into our practice. I've said that numerous times, but it's very important that there is. I don't want to say a right way and a wrong way. There's certainly a wrong way, but I can't say that our way is right. But
No.
what I can say is that it has been effective, and we stick to it, right? So coming up after the break, we will discuss what not to do and how Iron City Paranormal approaches cleansings. So stick with us after the commercial break, and we will get into those kind of things. Stick with us.
Every ghost story and creature feature lies a far more terrifying truth. The real monsters wear human faces. In the chilling book, All Monsters Are Human, from Derek Smith, 10 Twisted Tales expose the darkest parts of a human soul. From killers hiding in plain sight to obsessions turned deadly. Each story invites you to step into a shadowed world where morality unravels, and the only thing more terrifying than what lurks in the dark is who. These aren't just horror stories. They're reflections of ourselves, showing what happens when fear, rage, guilt, and desire take control. Visit nxmedia.com for more information on All Monsters Are Human from Derek Smith. And you can purchase them at Amazon.com from nxmedia.com. The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to research a haunted house can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unxmedia.com or Amazon.com. That's unxmedia.com or Amazon.com. The truth, it's out there, and it's waiting for you. The Unexplained Network is your source for the best in paranormal programming, live video streaming, and audio streaming from hauntings, UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, and the ever-expanding realm of the unexplained. Listen live or on demand now on Spreaker, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, and Pockets all over the World Wide Web. The Unexplained Network, where unexplained lives.
Okay, thanks for sticking with us. Welcome back. So let's get into what we do, right? So let's set the scene here a little bit. People reach out to us fairly regularly, asking for us to come in and assess what they have going on, but then more so to just get rid of it, right? There's a lot less people like us in the world that want to go towards the thing. People just, a lot of people just don't understand paranormal things or spiritual interactions or what have you, so they just want rid of it, right? And that's kind of where we come in when we do cleansings, right? It's not a large percentage of what we do. Most of what we do and how we operate is through investigations, right? We're trying to get answers. We're trying to further stories so that other investigators can go in and continue their own story on it. But the times that we are called in, we are there to bring comfort back into people's homes, and I think that's really something that takes a pretty personal effect on us every time it happens.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So yeah, so when we go into a home, I always thought, and this shows you how like we are learning every time we do something. I was always under the impression that when you do a cleansing, you don't want to start by talking to whatever is there, right? When Derek and I first started to do cleansings, I was very against that. I was like, when we're going in there, we're not going to talk to it because it's kind of counterintuitive, right? We're going to talk to you. We're going to welcome you into the space to talk to us and to interact with our equipment, but then we're going to tell you to leave. It's kind of a jerk thing. So I just I always shied away from that. until recently, we were doing a cleansing with Sabrina, who had started with us. She unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, she's moved on to some phenomenal things in her life and has moved away. So she's going to be staying with us and doing some remote viewings and sessions with us. But she was doing an in-person cleansing with us, and I told her this, and I told her, like, let's not talk to the ghosts because it's going to confuse them. And she looked at me, and she knows way more about this stuff than I do because she, studied it way more. And she just looked at me and she said, that's not how that works. And I was like, no, I don't. Right. It makes sense to me. So clearly I didn't, but that's where I had like the realization. And she taught me that that's not the truth. Right. It's not counterproductive to talk to them first. If anything, it's actually helpful, in her words, because it helps you acclimate and learn who and what you're dealing with. Right. And when you know the person or the energy that you're dealing with, your approach to asking them to leave will be different based on that. And she didn't tell me that in as many words, but she kind of like sent me down this path, and then I researched it. So that's kind of what I put together. Right. Again, learning as we go. But anyways, so we're typically armed with an arsenal of things whenever we do cleansings. So we have all the time we have crystals for our own protection. But those crystals are a very strong component of not only chasing the things away or chasing the energies away, but also sustaining that after we leave. And you do a great job of that, Aaron. Like you step up, you're like, take one for the team and sit with the homeowners, like assemble them this little like care package of crystals.
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit with like because I don't even know all of what you give them, because I'm not sitting there listening when you're talking all the time. You know, Derek and I are usually establishing a baseline at the home, kind of feeling things out while you go through it. So I'd actually love to know what you give to these people.
So it depends on the homeowner. It depends on what they've been experiencing and like what their experience is with crystals. But we'll generally put together like a little care package for them that includes a lot of grounding or protection crystals. So we're going to make sure that we have like a black tourmaline in there, or obsidian, or something black, right, that's going to ground. We generally will put in some clear quartz as an amplifier. We'll put in some let me think, what else do we put in there? Lots of clear, black, and purple stones. So for example, why am I absolutely forgetting the name of the one that I put in there all of the time? Amethyst. Good Lord. My goodness.
Oh, okay.
Amethyst is a really great protection stone, but it also like encourages positivity and things like that. So we'll sit down with the homeowner. We'll make sure that they understand like each crystal serves a specific purpose, whether that is cleansing, whether it is protecting, whether it's making sure that we are just increasing the positive energy in the home, making sure they understand not only what each crystal does and its intended purpose, but also how to care for those crystals. So sitting down and letting them know, like, hey, here's the crystal you don't need to worry about cleansing. It can sit here and it will be a workhorse for you and it'll just keep on going. Or, here are some options for cleansing and recharging your crystals. Here's how you're going to set your intentions for these crystals, and really just walking them through like a beginner 101 on protection crystals.
And I always find it fascinating whenever you're after, because when you first sit with the homeowner and you start going over these things, you give them a booklet of papers that explain all the crystals do. But what I find fascinating is their shift in the way they are looking at you throughout the time you're talking to them. right? And the one home in the South Hills of Pittsburgh that I'm thinking of, we actually had to go back to her home, 3 times, I think, to
I
do
think so, yeah.
repetitive cleansings because this individual, she was a sweetheart of a person, but she was very afraid of what she was experiencing. She asked us, and her family asked us to come in and actually do this cleansing to help her out the best we could, and we did that, right? And in the moment, things got better, right?
Mhm.
We ourselves felt a dramatic shift every time we did it in the energy overall, and we left the homeowner with these tools to continue what we created, the safe space that we created, but it is not a one and done kind of thing, right? We have to look to the homeowners to continue what we started
Mhm.
and to continue to maintain that safe, I don't want to say low energy, but like positive energy environment.
Yeah.
Right, it's kinda like a positive pressure room in a hospital, right? So
Yeah.
that when you open the door, it pushes the air out rather than suck the air in, so because they don't want you to, don't want everybody spreading around. Very much the case, and whenever you don't do those things, right, and you take the education that you provided on crystals, you take the witch bells, like this individual thought that she convinced herself, again, here we are back to the psychological aspect of, what makes cleansings effective. We provided her with witch bells and had one that we put on our front door, one that we put on our back door. And she, as after we left, had actually convinced herself that those bells, when she would ring them, it was more like a dinner bell for the spirits,
Mhm.
pulling them in rather than keeping them out. And I think that once we got notified of that and called about that, they called Derek, or she called Derek and was like, "Hey, these bells that you left me, they're bringing them in." And it
Yeah.
was from that moment on, like, you could see this decline, right? And you could
Yeah.
hear about this decline. She'd call every week. So
Yeah.
we actually had to go back and do it again, and, after the 3rd time, we kinda lost touch with her, so I hope she's doing well still.
Yeah. I mean, that really goes to speak to intention, right? Just like with everything else, with
Mhm,
smudging, whenever we're doing a cleansing, whenever we're using crystals, everything is about intention. Every single thing. So if she's
mhm.
sitting there saying in her mind, this is bringing them in, then yes, it almost certainly was, because that was the intention that she was setting, whether that be intentional or unintentional, every time she used those bells. She's sitting there ringing those bells
Yep,
thinking this is bringing them in, then it's bringing them in every single
yep,
time. Mhm.
absolutely. They do become those dinner bells, and
Mhm.
that's exactly what they became.
Yeah.
And, like, before we had lost touch with her, um, her experiences were actually amplifying quite a bit because of that mindset she put herself in,
Mhm.
and again, we can only help so much, right?
Yeah.
We don't know if it's what we're doing, but all we do, well, we know what we're doing, but the only thing that we know that we're doing is just creating positive vibes. And the way that we do that, when we walk into the home, like I say, Aaron will typically spend a good chunk of time educating the homeowner on what's happening, right?
Yeah.
What we're doing when we walk around the space. So we have multiple things that we use. We, of course, have sage, right? Sage is what people expect. And I think that it's relatively effective in our experience.
Mhm. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
I know that,
personally I personally prefer Palo Santo, but it is incredibly hard to light. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure we tried doing a cleansing with my Palo Santo at the end of
Mhm.
one investigation that we had, and you literally came at the thing with a torch, and we
Yes.
couldn't get it lit enough to get it to, like, really effectively smudge. We ended up switching over to sage. But personally, in my own home, I prefer Palo Santo. I just prefer the smell of it.
It smells way better. I mean,
Mm,
sage smells like pot, right? I
it
mean, if
does.
when you're around it enough, like, it smells like pot, and
Yeah.
I know that I've driven back from doing cleansings multiple times thinking to myself, "Boy, if I get pulled over," like, this was before,
Yeah.
like, pot was as widely, accepted as it is now and have, like, medical cards and everything else, like, would be driving home in my truck and being like, oh my God, if I get pulled over, like these cops are going to be running up one side of me and down the other, asking what the heck's going on. Because it does, and it sticks with you.
It
I
does.
remember like how often did we leave these cleansings and like our eyes would be bloodshot from the smoke. Like if you're doing it right, you're just enveloping the space with this heavy sage smoke.
Yeah.
Right? Because in theory, the place where the smoke goes, the energy can't be.
Mm-hmm.
So if that smoke goes into the corners, goes into the, behind the curtains, in the closet, then spirits can't hide there.
Mm-hmm.
So we will take that smoke. We will also take sound bowls, tuning forks, and they're tuned to a frequency that is believed to provide cleansing energy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the idea.
So I know we talked about that a little bit today, but like what did we finally settle on? What did we research on that? I can't remember what hertz that was.
I think it was 417.
417. Okay. Yeah, it's in the I think that's right. I think that's what the last thing we saw was. There's a couple different literatures out there that say different, but it's usually in that 400 and like say 15 to 450 hertz is really where the belief is that those energies are of the cleansing variety. Right. It's kind of like the brown note from South Park. I don't know if you were a South Park fan back in the day, but it was like this note that the kids would play on their instruments, and every time they played it, it would make people poop. it's like that. It's like that, but opposite, right? It doesn't make you poop. It gets rid of the spirits. So here we are. We're the three of us are in these homes. We walk into the door the way that the homeowners would come in most often. And we go through the house in a clockwise motion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We start at the top. We come in the entrance, we go up to the highest point with the sage going, with the sound going, but we also have religious based prayers as well as spiritual, like balancing type statements that we say, and that I love the way we do it. I know I'm biased, right? Because we do it, but I love the way that we do it because I have different beliefs in like divine interventions and almighty beings and those kind of things, whereas you believe more in the spiritual cleansings and the earth ties, and Derek's kind of in the middle between both of them. So we actually have this packet of prayers, for a lack of a better term, and statements that fit each of us.
Yeah.
Right? Because the three of us it's very important that we feel strong as individuals and as a whole when we're doing these cleansings, or it's not going to work.
Yeah. And we've adjusted those a number of times. Like we've taken, I think we started out with just like some standard ones, and then we really adjusted them. And then some of them are even written ourselves. Like we would write our own, something that meant the most to us. And like, I'm not going to read yours. You're not going to read mine. Like we have our own set that as we're walking through, and most of the time Dan's leading the charge or Derek's leading the charge. They're very good at making sure they get into all the nooks and crannies that we're supposed to get into. But we'll make sure that we're reading through those. And whenever we shift around, like Dan is reading the ones that mean the most to him spiritually. Same thing with Derek, same thing with myself, just to make sure that those intentions are pure.
And we follow each other. We don't allow one person to wander off by themselves, right? And it's very much the pack mentality, right, that comes with predators and those kind of things. Is when we are alone, we are weak. When we are together, we are strong, right? So we don't walk into a space and stand there and one person speaks really loudly while the other person goes over and does this corner and the other one goes over and does this corner. We walk as a collective group throughout the space in a clockwise motion all the time, right? We go clockwise around the building, but then also every room that we enter, going on that clockwise trajectory, we go clockwise around that space.
Yep.
That is the belief that clockwise flushes away the negative and brings in the positive.
And generally the last person in our line is reading whatever's being read and shutting windows as we go.
Yep. Yeah, and that's something we forgot to talk about. Like, that's the first thing we do when Derek and I are setting up while you're working with the homeowner, informing them what's going on. Derek and I will go around the home, open windows. We've done it in the middle of winter when it's like 10 degrees outside. Their heating bill goes up, I'm sure. But what do you want more? Do you want a high gas bill, or do you want a ghost sneaking under your bed when you're trying to get a nap in? Like, I would prefer to have a little bit higher of a gas bill.
Yeah.
You know, so to your point, when we walk by that window, we have allowed that energy a place to get out, right? By exiting that window, that door, whatever it is, that opening to the outside. And then when we walk past it, we close it so that it cannot come back in. Now, some people they'll actually put salt or something along the windowsills as like a
added protection, I guess.
A
like
mineral barrier.
Once it's out.
Yeah. They'll actually. I've read that I guess that's something you can see whenever individuals do certain cleansings. They'll leave like rock salt or something like that on the windowsills for a period of time before they clean it. They're allowed to clean it up. So we don't do that because we're cheap, right? We don't ask for payment on any of this. We do it, out of the want to help people. So we don't, funsies is a way to put it. We just, we just kind of try to keep it clean and safe for everybody, So we go around all of the spaces saying these prayers. When we get done with the prayers, we start over. The bigger the space, the more times you're going to hear the same prayers. And we just keep going. I will tell you, when I get done with a cleansing, I feel like I drank a pot of coffee every single time because my energy level is spiking through the roof. I feel like Billy Mays selling Flex Seal or something like that. Like, look at this boat. This boat used to be a screen door and now it's a boat. Well, that's how I feel because I just get so amped up from it because of like what I'm reading. Because I know that we're doing good things. I know that we're helping people. Like, my energy goes through the freaking roof. I don't know. Is that something that you feel when you do that?
I don't necessarily feel it. I feel so much lighter at the end. I feel like I am so worried as we're walking through about like feeling the shift in the energy. And I know the one that we did down in the South Hills was so evident. I remember going through one of the bedrooms and I even made a comment to you guys that like, wow, like the energy was so heavy before, and then you could physically feel it just shift right out the window, and like the energy shift was insane. So I feel like I'm always keyed into that, and then just like keeping the finger on the pulse for the energy as we're continuing through.
Yeah, and that balance of that energy, we also need to be aware when it's not effective.
Yeah.
Like, we've gone back and redone areas because it just didn't feel right to us.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, again, where we rely on each other, because I want to know if Aaron feels good about it. I want to know if Derek feels good about it. They want to know if I feel good about it. And then we call that space done. And then we move to the next one. Right. So we don't want to leave any hesitancy, I guess is the word for it. Right. We don't want to leave any potential uh-ohs at the end. Like, if one of us feels that something isn't right, we don't question it. We just circle back and do it again.
Yep.
And it 9.5 times out of 10, it does work. That redoing of it.
Yeah.
Right. So we will go all the way around the space. We'll continue with the sound. That sound vibration does very much the same thing that the smoke does. The vibrations of the sound goes into every nook and cranny. It actually helps us a little bit more than just pure smoke. Because one of the things we always have to worry about with smoke and saging is those little tiny embers. I don't want to set somebody's closet on fire,
Yeah.
like smudging an area. So like if there's clothes in the closet or whatever, if I have the sage, I'll kind of like waft it in,
Mhm.
let it fill up the space, but then I'll have you or Derek, sound the bells or whatever behind me and like use that to fill that space and use those vibrations to chase it out.
Yeah.
Like I said, we don't carry insurance for these kind of things.
No.
I don't know if you can get spiritual cleansing insurance from PNC Bank or whoever, but maybe we should try one day.
That would be great.
Yeah. So after it's all said and done, we close that last door literally, right? The entry that we came into is the last one that gets closed. And that is a physical and spiritual way of saying we are done here, right?
Mhm.
You are no longer welcome. Thanks, but no thanks. Exit stage left, whatever you want to say, right? That's when we know it is done.
Mhm.
At that point, then we talk to the homeowner because the homeowner is typically there. And we do encourage the homeowner to be there when we do this because a lot of the times we have to get into now what I want to talk about is that separation of spiritual energy from individuals as well.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something we've come across numerous times. We actually had, we did Caliente Pizza several months ago down in Crafton, and the owner of all of the Caliente Pizzas, Nick, he just took Derek and I through the location that we were going to investigate one evening after work. Without you there, Aaron, you weren't able to make
Mhm.
it. So
No.
he just walked us around the space, told us like, this is where we make pizza. This is where the offices are. This is what you'll have access to, this and that, this, don't turn this on, whatever. And we didn't actually do any investigations, but at the end of it, Nick's wife, excuse me, Nick's wife, who's actually out of the two of them, the one that believes in the spiritual energy, asked him to be cleansed by us before we let him come home because his wife didn't want him coming home without a cleansing.
Yeah.
So can you very quickly, because we are coming up on the end of the time, but can you very quickly kind of get into how we do a cleansing, separating an individual from those cords or those energies or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So the process for the actual cord cutting part of that is pretty simple. A lot of it is visualization and intention setting. So whether you're visualizing that cord going from the center of your body to whatever that thing is, or you just know that there is a cord that's there, you basically just take those, you gather those cords from the front of your body, you pull them from the back of your body, you bring them all around to the front, and then with your hand, or we normally like to use black kyanite. I love using black kyanite because it comes in the form of a blade anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Take that black kyanite.
Yep.
And you very, very gently and carefully like make that cutting motion with those cords in front of you and then slowly push them back out into the universe. And by doing that, by not cutting them super hard, that's going to make them kind of bounce back and reattach to you. But by doing that, you're just taking that energy and you're letting it out. And then the second part of that is when we go through and we sage ourselves, which we do in a similar method than what we do when we're in a physical building, right? Like we normally stand there with our arms out and our legs apart. One of us will go through with our sage stick. And I know, Dan, you can speak to this a little bit better, but you literally start at one side, you go all the way up, all the way down, turn around, do the other side. And like you are literally saging every part of your body in order to get those energies off. Now, I've done things before where like we have saged and I still feel a connection. And a lot of those times are, at the end of an investigation, we have connected to something or connected to a person in a way that like just needs cut. Like those cords need cut. And even if we have done a cleansing after an investigation, I will still in my own home, like cut the cords and re-sage myself here at the house. I've had that happen a couple of times, which has been helpful. And it's like the cutting of the cord thing is what has helped. Being able to cut that connection and push it away and then also resage to like reset the energy that's the way to do it. Just covering all the bases,
Sure. And I want to, so you said that I do most often do the actual saging of the people.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the worst part about it, besides the fact that you have typically an adult standing with their arms completely spread horizontally, their legs spread apart,
Yep.
right? They look like they're in the middle of a jumping jack, and we have to get the smoke into every single crevice, right?
All the nooks and crannies there too.
Every nook and every cranny, every fold, we have to get up under their, like up into their crotch area. Like we leave no stone unturned, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if the spirits like slink into their nether regions and hang out and then wait for it all to go away and then they come back out and haunt them, but I'm gonna be darn sure it's not gonna happen, you know? So that has been quite the journey. And I know that it was, we always have a plan. We rarely follow the plan. But that's what we like to do, right? We like to be as candid as possible with these things because we have to have fun with it. The second that we stop having fun with it is the second I stop doing it, right? We enjoy this stuff. So Aaron, do you have any parting words before we adjourn until the next episode?
No, I think this was a lot of fun to talk about. I can't wait to see what we're doing next. Yeah,
me too. We have to figure that out.
Yeah.
So I will leave everyone with a parting statement. I like to have statements as we go. We don't know. So maybe cleansing removes something. Maybe it gives us control when we feel we've lost it. But either way, when you step back across the bridge, make sure that you're carrying something you choose to keep. Remember that when I'm filling your nook and your cranny with smoke. Until next time, everybody. Thank you for once again joining us on the other side of the bridge. Toodles.